Anonymous group of cannabis enthusiasts in Welwyn Garden City are feeding hemp to birds so the illegal plant grows wild in the local area. The Welwyn Garden City Cannabis Club argue legalising cannabis for personal use would do no more harm than alcohol. And they believe seeing the plant growing wild in beds, hearts and bucks will generate a good conversation about the potential benefits of legalising it. Well, Police and Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire, David Lloyd, says he'll take a firm stand against anyone who grows the plant, whilst local MP Grant Shapps argues whilst everyone is free to campaign for whichever changes in the law they want, planting cannabis in public flower beds is not the way forward. Well, we're about to meet a member of the Cannabis Club who goes by the name of Luna. Listen to what she says, and I'd like your calls as well. What do you make of Luna's cannabis campaign? Do you absolutely support it? Is it fantastic, or is it highly irresponsible? If you agree that cannabis should be legalised, perhaps you'd like to come on and offer Luna your support. Or have you seen some of the damage cannabis misuse can cause, and you think that she and her fellow campaigners, they're just being hugely irresponsible? They're not thinking about this enough. 03459 455 555 is my number. Luna, good morning to you.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm very well indeed, thank you. So, when did you... I presume you are a cannabis user yourself?
Yes, I am, yes.
And when did you first start using it?
I first started at around the age of 16, and I don't personally believe that would have happened if cannabis was regulated. The way it's so freely accessible doesn't stop people from smoking, therefore it becomes freely available to people under the age of 18. Drug dealers don't ask you for ID, all they ask for is, your £20 note, and that's about it. So I do believe that ending prohibition would stop young people smoking cannabis.
Why did you start it?
I started mainly as a social thing. I always saw as a child that I was very openly educated about it, and openly educated about the good benefits that it had and could come from it. And that
by
always
whom?
Understood by family, by people around me, by medical consumers, by patients. Growing up around people that used medical cannabis.
Right. So people around you and people you knew and trusted were kind of saying to you cannabis is a good thing, whereas most of us grew up with...
not in an irresponsible way, not in a way that you'd say that you'd advise alcohol was good for children. But we, as alcohol is accepted in society, we're educated about it. Unlike cannabis, everyone's given this opinion and it's got this stigma attached to it. There needs to be far more education about it. We need to tax, regulate and educate. Our laws are ridiculously out of date with society and embarrassingly out of date with science. Not only denying people of medical marijuana is murder, we can't continue to punish sick people who find consuming cannabis gives them relief.
But I've spoken to many people, as you can imagine, Luna, over the years, who have family members who've become complete and utter Fruit Loops because they've been consuming cannabis. I know of people who have lost children because they've killed themselves.
I completely understand that, but there's actually no evidence. The Daily Mail recently published some research whereby they monitored a collection of men, some that consumed cannabis as an adolescent and some that didn't consume and never have done consumed. They found absolutely no difference. They studied these men over a course of 25 years, I think it was, and they found absolutely no difference in the mental or physical health of the men that had consumed.
But you've only got to look at people who smoke a lot of cannabis, and I mean you can see it. I remember when I was at university, I used to, along my halls of residence, there were these two guys who hang on, let me make the point that these two guys who used to live along my halls of residence, they used to smoke cannabis all the time, and to be honest, they were both very intelligent guys. By the end of university, they were complete and utter morons. I mean, they couldn't even talk properly.
I completely understand that, and I do get that stoners give themselves a bad name in that respect. If you sat around and drank coffee all day, that's going to do you equally as much damage. If you were to drink energy drinks all day, if you abuse anything, it's not good for you. I mean, you can die overdosing on water. I'm not suggesting that sitting around consuming cannabis all day is going to help anybody. But if we educate, we can learn to harness different particles of cannabis that can be used in different ways to actually help people.
Okay, now look, I want to talk to you some more, and I want to talk to you about what you're doing here in Beds, Hearts and Bucks in terms of trying to grow cannabis. But I need to take my news headlines. Can you hang on there? I'll come back to you.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Luna. If you're listening and if you want to join this conversation, if you have a view, 03459 455 555. I'd love to hear from you. Coming up at 11, of course, I'll be dealing with your consumer problems. But first, an anonymous group of cannabis enthusiasts in Welwyn Garden City are feeding hemp to birds so that the illegal plant grows wild in the local area. The Welwyn Garden City Cannabis Club argues legalising cannabis for personal use would do no more harm than alcohol. They believe seeing the plant growing wild in beds, hearts and bucks will generate a good conversation about the potential benefits of legalising it. Well, a lot of people are not very happy about this, including the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire, David Lloyd, who said he'll take a firm stand against anyone who grows the plant. Local MP for Welwyn Hatfield, Grant Shapps, says whilst everyone is free to campaign for whichever changes in the law they want, planting cannabis in public flower beds is not the way forward. Well, on the line is a lady that we're calling Luna. She is a part of this cannabis campaign, and I'm asking her why she's doing it. But I'm also interested to hear from you. What do you make of this campaign? Do you absolutely support it, or is it an outrageous thing to do? 03459 455 555. You still there for me, Luna?
Yes, of course. Hello, Jonathan.
Good. So you were saying that you started smoking cannabis because you kind of grew up with other people who used cannabis and you felt they used it in a responsible way. They didn't use it in an irresponsible way. And you saw the positive side of cannabis, which is why you started consuming it yourself. And you were saying that just because I and other people may have encountered people who misused the drug and took too much of it, it shouldn't in any way detract from the fact that if you use it on a kind of occasional basis, it's no more harmful than, for example, consuming alcohol. Is that pretty much a fair summary of the points you made?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm trying to say. You know, according to the NHS, alcohol is around the third biggest risk factor for illness. Yeah, it's so readily available to us all. I mean, I live in about 100 yards of a pub. You can buy it from Sainsbury's. It's so freely accessible, but it's so detrimental. It's a carcinogenic substance.
But any drug is surely, unless it is a medically developed drug like a paracetamol for taking away pain, any drug is bad. Any drug can be addictive. So any drug, including alcohol, in an ideal world, we would not have legal. But it has been legal for so long.
That's the difference with using marijuana. Is that, in fact, you know, they found CBD, one of the common components in cannabis, has been proven to be antipsychotic. There's so many things that, like you say, paracetamol, pain relief, is so detrimental to your health. But MS patients, people with Crohn's, people with epilepsy, they can avoid taking all these harmful pharmaceutical drugs and simply medicate with cannabis, which the side effects are happy, sleepy and hungry.
Yes, but you're talking about a certain kind of cannabis that is largely not consumed. I gather most cannabis that is consumed now is very strong and can have a hugely detrimental effect to someone's psychological state.
So that's why I'm saying if we regulate, surely it'd be better to have it regulated and have people going to medical cannabis dispensaries where they can consume and collect their cannabis that has been tested and it's specific to them. Drug dealers don't ask you if you've got any previous medical conditions or mental illness or things that could affect your consumption of cannabis, whereas if it was regulated from a dispensary, you can get all sorts of different cannabis that can harness different things and help completely different things.
So tell me about this business with feeding birds hemp. I don't quite get it. How does it work?
Okay, so feeding birds hemp is completely legal. You can buy hemp seed from your local Holland and Barrett, your local Home-Based, Van Hagues, wherever. All we've done is feed the birds with this bird feed, and hemp has grown around Welwyn Garden City. We've done this to illustrate.
And how does it grow then? The birds eat it and then they poo, and what?
It grows. It's nature.
It grows from bird poo.
Photosynthesis, I guess.
It
may grow from the seeds that don't get eaten by the birds. The birds can carry the seed, poo it out somewhere, and then it will grow.
But
it's just nature. It's the same with any other seeds that you would do that with.
But the intention of you feeding those birds hemp, even if ultimately it's legal what you're doing, the intention is not legal because the intention is to grow cannabis.
Well, hemp isn't cannabis. That's where the media have sort of turned it round and saying that we're growing cannabis. They're sort of saying that we're trying to single-handedly provide cannabis for the world. That's not what we're trying to do.
What are you growing then?
Isn't illegal.
What do you grow?
Hemp is completely illegal. It's completely legal, in the UK. However, you do need a license if you want to mass produce it. And that's our other argument. It's not just about cannabis. It's also about hemp and plastics. I mean, we don't utilise hemp. We're depleting our planet with plastic, and no one seems to bat an eyelid about it.
How does hemp vary from cannabis then?
Well, hemp doesn't have any THC, so it doesn't give you that high. It's not something that you would smoke.
So what would you do with
hemp if you tried?
So what would you do with hemp?
Hemp can be manufactured. We could basically replace our polyplastics industry.
So why are you bothering to do this then? What's the point? If you're not ultimately growing cannabis that people can smoke, what's the point of doing it?
What's the point in doing it? Because this isn't just for us. This isn't selfish reasons. This is because we care about every single person on this planet. We're all on this earth, and we've destroyed it to the point that it's now irreversible. Something needs to change. Right. I don't want my children growing up in a world that's got a percentage of plastic in our rock.
Well, but with the greatest of respect, you haven't answered the question. If you're only growing hemp, and if feeding the birds hemp seeds, and then the birds poo it out, and then that makes hemp grow, and if you can't smoke hemp, what's the point? What is
conversation? This is the point. We're getting people talking about it. We're getting people questioning. Hang on a second. Why is hemp legal? The USA have now declared that a study that was actually done in a university in England that consuming cannabis does help to kill cancer cells.
Well, people are questioning things, but not necessarily what you think they're questioning. I mean, I've had a question in on text. Does this woman have a job?
Yes, of course I do. Of course I do. I'm a full-time employed. I don't spend my entire time doing this. I'm very good at what I do. This is something that I care enough about to do to dedicate my spare time to doing. Of course I have a job.
Let me bring Neil in Hemel. He wants to have his say. Hello, Neil.
Morning, JVS.
Morning. So Luna is ultimately trying to get birds to help her grow hemp in beds, hearts and bucks, in the hope that we'll then have a discussion about growing cannabis and maybe legalising cannabis.
Absolutely wrong. There should never ever be any grounds for legalising cannabis. There are too many issues. There are too many types of cannabis, and they lead to too many problems because, again, it's exactly what she said in her own speech. It's not controlled in any way. As far as I'm concerned, hemp was used for making ropes and string. That's the only thing that we ought to be looking to use it for, unless we can make other things
hemp
with
can be used to make oil. It can be used to make concrete. There's over 50,000 uses for hemp. You can basically replace everything that we know and use that's not biodegradable. You can replace with hemp.
Fine. We can use hemp for that, but we don't want it for stuff like this. My older brother.
But I still forgive my ignorance here.
Smoking cannabis and stuff from when he was teenage, and it's turned his brain to mush.
But I don't quite understand. I don't quite understand. Forgive my ignorance. I don't take cannabis. I don't consume it. I don't understand anything about the world that cannabis revolves around. I don't get where the connection between hemp and cannabis comes in.
Because, so when cannabis was first made illegal, because hemp, basically nobody could profit from hemp. Plastic companies, oil companies, electricity companies, no one would be able to profit if we introduced hemp. So hemp, in light of that, was then made illegal, so we couldn't use this. It was then, because it holds the exact same properties. It is a species of cannabis.
Oh, it is a species of cannabis.
It's a species. It's not cannabis, but they're under the same umbrella, if you like. You couldn't get high off it if you tried.
Well, I don't quite understand then why you're growing it. I mean, you're not going to smoke. You're not going to walk around Welwyn Garden City thinking, "Oh, there's a bit of hemp growing now. I'm going to smoke it."
We're not looking to do that. What we're saying is, it's very difficult to get a license to grow hemp in the United Kingdom, and it's very expensive also. So what we're trying to do is, why is this plant that is so freely used, that can so freely grow, not being utilised? Most plastic items have got a one-use lifespan. Just take a moment to ask yourself why we're ignoring hemp and continuing to use harmful and destructive substances for our plastics when we could be using hemp that's completely biodegradable.
Neil, ultimately Luna wants cannabis to be legalised. Why do you think that would be a bad move?
Right, well, does she really think that it's an okay thing to smoke what she claims to be destructive elements?
It's not what I claim. It's scientific research that has gone into this. It's not what I claim. It's embarrassing. I urge anybody to go on to the United Patients Alliance website, that's upalliance.org, and look at the stories from medical cannabis consumers. Why is America legalising cannabis and decriminalising cannabis if it poses such harm to its people? Why is there medical research? It's embarrassing that the UK isn't following suit when there's research being done in our country by the National Institute of Drugs for America to help them legalise. It's not helping us.
I've had a text in here, and I want to just read some of it. It's a very long text, so I'm only going to read a little proportion of it to you. But it says, I am a substance misuse worker for a local charity. I have to remain anonymous due to the nature of my work. I felt it was important to comment regarding cannabis. There is absolutely zero benefit to smoking cannabis, as there is more risk to health. There is huge misconception around the scientific benefits to health. So to clarify, cannabis produces 2 times the amount of carbon monoxide and double the amount of tar in comparison to tobacco smoking.
There's absolutely no tar. There's
Cannabis has
There's no tar in cannabis.
Cannabis has 66 cannabinoids.
Cannabinoids.
Just to explain a few, one is a pain reliever, one increases appetite, one is THC, one is CBD. The others are all psychoactive, which increase mental health risk. The misconceptions of pain relief. In Switzerland, they've managed to remove the pain reliever and put it into vapor safely. There is no need to smoke cannabis, says this person, and there is no benefit that comes from it whatsoever.
Okay, I'm not once I mentioned smoking, I said I personally smoke cannabis, but consuming cannabis, that's also where people are naive to how cannabis can be consumed. It can be consumed in oil, it can be consumed in vapor, you can eat it, you don't have to smoke it. It can be helped, and that's why I'm saying we need to educate. Exactly, she's completely proved my point in that they're now working how to take out the psychoactive parts of cannabis, and now we can use
But you want to smoke it. You want to smoke it.
No, that's not my point exactly. I want to make it.
Well, why don't you consume it in a different way then? If it's got all these benefits but you don't need to smoke it, why do you smoke it?
Well, it's a lot harder for people. I can do if I wish to.
So why do you smoke it?
I'm not bothered about I'm not even bothered about whether it gets legalised recreationally or not.
Let's cut through it. You smoke cannabis because you want to get high.
I smoke cannabis for a lot of reasons that aren't to do with this cause.
You smoke cannabis in the same way.
I don't feel a relative. I don't feel why I smoke cannabis is relative to the rest of society's well-being.
Well, it is, because you smoke cannabis in the same way that an alcoholic wants to get absolutely blind drunk. You want to escape reality.
I want to escape reality. No. I felt like I wanted to escape reality without smoking.
What?
I don't think it makes you feel like that. I don't think you can. If you're going to start comparing alcohol and cannabis, alcohol is a carcinogenic.
You want it to be legalised so that
with no medical properties.
You want it to be legalised so you can get high. That's why.
That's not why I want it.
You don't. All this other business of it can have medical benefits. It's all just a sideshow. You want it to be legalised so you can get high.
No, not at all. Why? If I wanted to just go and get high, I would move to Amsterdam. I would move to somewhere where it is legal to consume. Surely that would be the logical thing to do. But no, it's not that. I care about society. I care about humanity. I think people need to be educated.
You don't care about society. You care about getting high. You care about getting high.
Prohibition hasn't worked for 40 years.
You care about getting high.
That's insane about this. Doing something wrong and expecting the same results. Prohibition hasn't worked for 40 years. You care about getting high, and all you want is cannabis to be legalised so you can get high, and this sideshow and this business of walking around Welwyn Garden City feeding birds hemp so that people can then talk about legalising cannabis. It's all a sideshow so you can try and publicise the fact that you just want to get high. By myself. I'd just get high quietly. No one would bat an eyelid. No one would know. I'd just do that.
So you admit that is what you want?
That's not what I want. I'm not saying that's what I want. Why would I put so much time and energy into this cause if I didn't feel like it was going to benefit other people? This isn't a selfish act. And I urge anybody that's got any more questions to go onto the United Parents Alliance.
But there is no need to take cannabis.
I'm not saying there's a need. If you've got
so why legalise it then? Why encourage more people to take it?
That won't encourage people. Colorado, I've seen a decrease in young people.
Of course it will. You legalise something. You've only got to look at alcohol. The fact that alcohol is legal means 90% of the population consume it.
Well, yeah, exactly. But still,
if you legalise cannabis, you'll increase the levels of people that want to smoke cannabis, so that you'll be happy then, so you can sit getting high perfectly legally.
People can still consume cannabis regardless of the fact it's illegal. That's not going to change. That is evident, on how much money is spent on criminalising. The police spend over $760 million each year criminalising people for the sale and possession of cannabis. That's just ludicrous. If it's going to go on anyway, and that many people are being criminalised for it, why don't we end prohibition?
I've had a text in here. This Luna doesn't sound very chilled at all.
Well, it's because I care, like I say, I care a lot about this. And it's not something that I'm doing selfishly. It's something that I do genuinely care about. And I think it's going to, it's a global thing. It's not just for us. This is going to help humanity as a whole.
All right. OK, well, thanks very much for your time.
That's okay. But I would like to just say, if anybody has any further questions, please do your own research and open your eyes to what's out there.
Thanks, Luna.
Thank you. Bye.
There's Luna from the Welwyn Garden City Cannabis Club.